Hello and welcome to the Free to Succeed podcast. And like usual, I'm here with Dylan. My name is Sam. And today we're having a very interesting conversation. One that is actually a conversation that we've had in the bank for a while.
Yep.
That we decided to bring out today because it just felt right. You know?
It did, yeah.
And so it's talking about becoming the kind of person who has a successful business. And I feel like there's a lot of things that go into that. And today I know we have this kind of selection of 10 different characteristics that really kind of go into that. And I know before we really dive into those characteristics or kind of go into our general conversation, I know we wanted to talk about one thing, and that is this idea called the law of attraction. And I know that since, we've known each other a long time, we've talked about the law of attraction before. We've had these conversations, before the podcast, we were just chatting a little bit and it came up. The law of attraction suggests that like attracts like, meaning our thoughts and feelings can attract similar experiences into our lives. And while not scientifically proven, this concept is explored in positive psychology, which studies, the impact of positive thinking, attitudes on life outcomes. Like you attract who you are. And this goes for relationships, business, and all other areas of life. I know I'm curious on maybe your thoughts on the whole law of attraction, and maybe if you've had experience in it, if you have personal examples, or even if you maybe disagree or where you stand really.
Yeah, so like with this definition, I feel like I mostly agree with the actual definition, because the definition is really just talking about how I think it really feeds into just like who you become, and who you become attracts different outcomes. So like, for example, an obvious one is like with relationships, like trying to get a good, like a good girlfriend or to get married, whatever, that kind of thing. If you want to attract a decent partner, and not lie, like to genuinely attract one, because you can trick people, but taking away manipulation, say it's a genuine person who can see through that anyway. If you want to have a partner, let's just say, who is has like good characteristics, whatever those characteristics are that you want in the person, but definitely things like honesty, definitely things that are just faithfulness, things that are like just universally everybody wants those kinds of things in a relationship. You'll have to first be those things. Just for a simple first example. So like if you want to, people give all kinds of relationship advice. The best I've ever heard was you become the person you want to attract in like your characteristics, of course.
I feel like to kind of maybe erase any confusion, it's like you don't become a hockey player and attract a hockey player. No,
it's not so much what you do, it's who you are.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, but then again, if you wanted to, be a hockey player, for that example, you would just start to, you would start to become the type of things that would be a hockey player. Like, for example, then you would, it would connect to going to the gym, it would connect to those kinds of things, physical things. Side, but also it would be a lot of like, I think almost everything in life is still more mindset than physical, or at least the harder part is the mindset than the physical part. The harder part, even going to the gym, the hardest part is the mental side of it, I think, because that's a big part of what your coaching is.
Yeah, I think that what happens a lot is that people go into it thinking the physical side is the important part. Like it starts with the desire for a physical change, and the people who see the biggest result are the people who come out saying, what an unbelievable difference my mindset is.
Yeah.
Right?
And that keeps you going.
Yeah. And they also do have this massive transformation, whether that be weight loss, and maybe my clients' examples, but if in this like hockey example, someone who's had their whole career, right? And at the end of their career, they're looking back on it and they're like, wow, like I'm such an improved person because of these experiences. You go through these hardships, maybe for a long time you thought, I need to, think of hockey player, I need to win the Stanley Cup. If I don't win the Stanley Cup, my whole career was a failure. My life is a failure. This is my life's work. And if I don't achieve that, I'm a failure. The people who probably end up not winning, long years later, they end up being the people who have the most wisdom in that they didn't ever need to win. They understood why they were doing all of this. They became the person who could be at peace with all of that and could have actually the wisdom to learn that it was not about that end result. It was about this journey of like their whole life that they experienced, right?
Yeah, and it's the same in businesses too. Like with business leaders, the ones that are not obsessed about making money, but they're just obsessed with, their people and being, you know, a good leader, and with actually like whatever their service or product is, those are the people who make the best businesses as well. I can't think of the names, but I'm reading a book right now called Mindset, which I talked about in the past episode a little bit. And basically what she talks about in that book, she lists a bunch of different names, different business leaders, like leaders of IBM, leaders of like a Procter and Gamble, and just all these different big businesses. Can't remember all their names exactly, but and then she just listed off guys who were all about themselves, all about their image, all about the pride of it, all about the money. And those are all people who have a fixed mindset, who are just trying to hold on to what they have. They don't want to lose what they have, so they're obsessive about money, obsessive about all this stuff, obsessed over power. And then versus other people who are more confident, they have these characteristics, they actually develop their character, and then they just led in a completely different way, which wasn't all about competitive, and it wasn't all about constant competition or image or looking a certain way or taking all the credit. It was about empowering others to do their best and to make a good product, and just to focus on the actual like purpose, and then the rest of it, like money, whatever the thing is that you want, money, or if it's a relationship, whatever it is. Well, and this is kind of coming back to my thing about this definition. In that way, I think the law of attraction works. Becoming that person who actually is, you know, value driven and like focused on their purpose and is living out kind of who they are. Of course, you're not going to be perfect, but like you're working on these things about yourself, these characteristics, and you start to live them out at least more often than not. Let's just say you're, you know, and you're actually focused and you're trying to do that. Most people aren't even trying to do that. So if you're just trying to do that, that's already massive, you know, step forward. And so those kinds of people who are actually in that place will attract better circumstances. And she had lots of examples in her book about business leaders who did fantastic. She had tons of examples about athletes who have the same kinds of mindsets, like, you know, like LeBron James or Michael Jordan, different people that had to talk a lot about mindset. And that's just a huge part of it. And it's because they become this person who, in a way, attracts these things to them. So I can understand why the law of attraction is a popular idea, but I can also see how it can be twisted. And I like, for example, a lot of people like that movie The Secret, which is about the law of attraction.
Oh, interesting.
It's a really popular.
I actually haven't.
Yeah, it's a really popular movie out there, and it's a documentary kind of style movie. I couldn't even get past the first like 15, 20 minutes of it.
What was?
It was basically like a cult without religion, is how it almost felt like. It was so like it's taking this idea and just going so far, and to the point where it just becomes like a lot of the, like it relates to a cult in a way of like, you know, like they like sit in like a prayer room, you know, like pray for everything to work out. They'll like think their way into like amazing things, you know, and you just like spend all this time like really, really thinking, and you may do some things too, but like I watched it a while ago, so I can't remember the exact examples, but I do know like I looked into this for a while, and I was starting to be like, hey, maybe this is really interesting. Maybe this is a thing that I'm supposed to be more a part of or more into. And then I realized that like, okay, you know what, this reminds me of kind of when I had been part of a cult.
Are you talking about like visualization?
Yeah, but like on steroids, right? Like all those things, but like on steroids. So like yeah. So those things, but like not just, you know, for your own personal growth, but also because it's literally going to make you $1 million guaranteed. Oh, so 100% of the time.
It's like the preaching of like the people who meditate on visualizing their dream for an hour a day for a year become millionaires, and it's like this,
and it'll always work, and there's an exact formula. It's kind of like the whole genie god thing, if you put it in the religious terms. It's almost like instead of God, it's the universe is your god, and now you're going to pray to it, and he's going to grant you your wishes as long as you're like, you know, fervent enough in your prayers. I
see. Okay.
Whereas the real, whereas like what you know what I think Jesus is actually talking about as far as a religious angle is he's talking about becoming a type of person, and then living in a certain way that will be like living in the kingdom here on earth, which then brings about a lot of, and because there are promises in the Bible that are also about, you know, like these health and wealth preachers in the Bible stuff, they do have, you know, scriptures that they're using that are actual scriptures, but those scriptures are talking more about rewards based on just because you're living a better life. They're not guaranteed necessarily, but it's just like you're far more likely to have good friends, good family, good loved ones if you become these things, which then makes your whole life better, because if you have loved ones, then when you fall down, they're there to help you get you back up. You're not alone, right? If you avoid certain, you know, pitfalls, certain sins, it'll help you stay in a much better, you know, way of life. So all that kind of stuff. It's the same thing with here, but minus the God element. It's about like saying you can bypass all the actual hard work, which isn't just working on your business or working on stuff. It's like working on yourself which I think is actually the hardest work that you can do, because it's not quite as simple as just, going on your computer and like just going and pumping in whatever the hours of work. It's actually like confronting yourself, being vulnerable, being open. It's actually about like acknowledging when you're wrong. And these, I think some of the characteristics we're going to get to in a minute will kind of cover some of these things and why certain things are better for you, for your business and for your life.
So then in terms of, if these affirmations, visualizations are things that, are, the extreme side of them are obviously what leads people into those kind of creepy, like weird cult like things like in the movie you were mentioning and all, what do you actually need to do in order to have a successful business? I know we have things to go into, but like, if that, because there are people online who are looking, like the red pill, blue pill world, right?
Right.
The whole side of that, and they're telling you gotta start waking up at 4 a.m. because I feel like when a lot of people think of becoming the kind of person who has a successful business, and I'll go even off my own experience in my head, I'm like, okay, if I want to be successful in my business, I need to wake up every day, 5 a.m. I got to start waking up before everybody else is, so I can get that work in before everyone else is getting work in.
It's a formula as well.
I also need to have cold showers. I also need to be working out and be finished my workout by 7 a.m. so I can be ahead of the game. Mm-hmm. I also need to make sure that I'm working at least 8 hours a day and working every weekend, because that is what is making me get that level up on everyone who's ahead of me, because there are people who have been doing it for years and I'm here at the bottom, and so I got to make up all that time, right and it's this
whole way of putting it, and
it's this whole way of like, I have to be so much more than the people who are ahead of me, so I become better than them, right? Mm-hmm. And so I feel like that is very much where this mindset of like, that's what a successful business is, because I just have to devote my entire life to work for something, and then that means I'm successful. But I don't think it is that. That's kind of the point I'm getting to, is like, I personally don't think it is that. I think that it becomes so much deeper, and I think that a business is more than just money. I think a business is more than just making it as successful as possible. I think it's more than just becoming better than your competitor. I think it really goes down into, I think it relates to your life, because as the business owner, a successful business, I hope, and at least in my opinion, is having some relation to you having a good life, right? If you have a good life, that is going to make your business thrive. You're going to be able to lead that onto your team. You're going to be able to lead that into your clients and customers. And so I think that as important as it is to have a successful and, business that is constantly improving, I think you need that in yourself. Otherwise I couldn't give you a name of a business, but there are businesses who died during the technological advancements of the last 10 years because they didn't advance, right? The people who were in those businesses did not, succumb to the time. They succumbed to the times because they just didn't decide to get into social media. They didn't decide to take steps into what was actually changing. They didn't do anything because they were just, this is what we do, and this is the way we go. This is the way we've always been, and this is what we're always going to do. And they're kind of stubborn in that way. And so they just left. They're gone.
And like, this is just we'll just segue that right into the first one, because that is the first one. The first characteristic. So basically, these are 10 characteristics of successful entrepreneurs that I got from Harvard University website as well. And the first one is about curiosity, and this is this one's a quote from their website, from this article that I read. The drive they have to continuously ask questions and challenge the status quo can lead them to valuable discoveries easily overlooked by other business professionals. So that's exactly what you're just saying. So it's perfect. Like, it's literally all about, this is why I think, because like, you didn't even necessarily think of this first time we really didn't. But it's just, I think as we go through these 10, you'll see just these are all just naturally. It's like, oh yeah, of course, but like, how do you develop that? So that's my question. So seeing you kind of jumped into that, how would you say that you could develop your curiosity?
Well, I think you need to learn that you need to have the audacity to do something large. I think you need to have the because you need to have the I like the word because it's funny. I actually was watching a show yesterday and they used this exact concept to describe something, and they were like, okay, like why would you be the person to change history? This is what they were kind of talking about in the show, and he was like, well, because I have the audacity to challenge it, right. And so it's like, I have the audacity to be curious enough to do this thing that I don't know if it's going to work, or I have the audacity to change my business in a way that I didn't expect I'd have to change, right? You just have to be the person who's going to be bold to make those decisions, and you just have to step out, because there are people. I'm not always bold. I don't always want to be bold in that kind of way. I want to stick to what I'm kind of used to.
Yeah, no,
but
that's
it really just
yeah.
absolutely takes that kind of that step out.
Like us doing this podcast is that in a way too.
Yeah. It's curious, right?
You're just being curious. Starting a seasoning company, going to go and invest in a bunch of seasonings. A very brand new thing for me too.
Yeah,
that's also being bold.
Exactly.
But like for you, because like this is a characteristic that's going to help you in all areas of life. We're talking about it mostly from the entrepreneurial angle again, and also career angle, because this definitely helps you move
absolutely
in careers. But we've kind of said that every episode, but just going to keep emphasizing it because maybe you haven't listened to the last episodes, but that's kind of our theme. Like we're really trying to work with people that are trying to build a career, build a job, build a life, or a business. Kind of want to like collaborate them. And so with curiosity, whatever you're doing, like because if you're in a company, being curious would obviously mean asking lots of questions. Like I know you do. I remember my dad saying about you when you worked with him for a bit. He's just like it's like, yeah, no, Sam's really great, but man, he asks a lot of questions.
Yeah, absolutely, I do. You bet
just
I do.
And with my dad being an older guy, he's like, it's almost too much for him because it's just their mindset, right? It's just like, just do it, and I'd rather you do it wrong and not ask me. It's almost, and then when I push it, it's like, no, that's a good thing. He knows it's a good thing, but then it's still that older mindset of just like, you don't want to ask too many questions, but you do actually, and that's definitely a good thing, and what you should do, and that's how you'll.
I got that in school. I got that in university.
Yeah,
I got that everywhere.
Yeah, so asking those questions is a huge thing. No matter where you are, asking yourself questions is the best thing, because there's not always someone around you. So that's part of the growth thing. So like once you've asked enough questions of your boss, supervisor, you eventually have to start asking them fewer questions, because you have to be like, okay, now I know what I'm doing. I'm on top of this. But then you innovate. And so what you do is you ask yourself questions. And that's, to me, that's like the next level. It's like, well, once you kind of know the basis, you do eventually move on from always asking questions. Because
I can give you an example of that.
Yeah, go for it.
So at this Supplement King place, the other day when I was working there, there was this guy went through the till, and he paid $150. And I looked at the computer as he walked out, or just after he walked out, and it said payment declined. And I was like, oh, because I kind of just, the guy transfers. I'm like, you're good to go. He didn't need his receipt, whatever. And so I look back at the computer and it's like, oh, payment declined, and he's gone. I heard his truck. He drove away. And so my first inkling was like, I got to text my boss. And I'm like, wait, I can solve this problem.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, well, what could I do? I'm like, okay, well, do I have his account? So he had an account. So I went to his account. I'm like, great. He is the one time an account didn't give their phone number. So I didn't have his phone number. So I was like,
okay,
crap. I was like, okay, that's ruled out. And so then from there, I'm like, okay, well, what else could I do? Well, I'm like, okay, well, I have his name. So I searched up his name on Instagram, and he had a private account. So I DM'd him on the Supplement King account and just kind of mentioned, hey, like, sorry, I know you have an account, didn't have your number in the system, and I just wanted to reach out about this happened. You could check your bank statement. It's fine. Like, I know that the payment didn't go through. And he responded, saw it right away, came back to the store 10 minutes later and paid for it. And
there you go.
And it was good. And then he left, and I was like, cool, problem solved. And it was a very satisfying feeling to have solved a problem that was a relatively large problem and figured out my own way around it.
Yeah, and I have to do that all the time because, like, I don't have a boss. I am.
Yeah, there's examples in my business too, but that was just the most.
That was the more recent one,
very fresh. That was like a day ago.
So, like, as you become a leader, whether you're your own a CEO or your manager or whatever it is, eventually a lot of the things come back to you.
Yeah,
and that's where this curiosity comes in. And actually, it makes it. Like, to me, when for some reason, a constant one comes to me, it's always like printer issues. Like,
I remember when I had so many printer issues.
And I solve it every time. And I never know what I'm doing. And every time we go, oh yeah, Dylan's an expert at this. Like, I have no idea. I just do stuff until it works. And it works. So I'm like, I ask myself questions and I'm going, okay, with this, with that. Yeah. And I just do things and eventually it works. And that literally is how that goes. So, like, that's amazing. I'm like, that's cool. So, like, the printer has taught me a lot of that. Now, obviously, there's a lot more examples, but that's just a funny one that just keeps coming back and back and back. That there's always a printer issue at some point in time throughout the year, a few times in the year.
The printer's lack of success and efficiency is what led you to be a better business owner.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Isn't that it?
So yeah, being curious and asking questions, asking yourself questions, and then if you have your own business, it's like trying something new in your business, like I'm doing with the spices. And if if you're, not a business owner and you're an employee, but you want to develop this, outside of work as well, great things like, this, like obviously a podcast is a lot of fun. It's a cool thing. Even if you don't want to take it as seriously as this, if you want to do like a once a month podcast, like a more rare because you're pretty busy, or like really short episodes or whatever you want to do. But if you want to like, just do that for fun, if you're into art, like, start posting your art and trying to like gain some traction, people to notice your art, just, for the fun of it, get curious about it. Don't worry about making money. Don't worry about it actually being profitable. Just get into it. And then, like this guy who does like said another episode about like the guy that does art on like toys, like different like figurines, and he's now like he's now like sponsored by Hasbro and like other big name companies, and he's like probably, I'm guessing, a millionaire at this point. And that's all just from like just posting stuff on Instagram. And so that's the one cool thing with social media. And even if it never turns into anything like businessy, it's just developing your curiosity and you're just trying something new, and it also is just fun. It's honestly just fun. Like I think I would do this podcast. It might be different topic a bit, but I'd probably do a podcast even if I was just working a regular job. I think I would do this.
Yeah, anyway. I mean, absolutely. And I mean, that even leads into like the willingness to experiment, which is the number 2.
That's literally what it leads into, yeah.
Right? Because it's like this guy who painted on toys, who did this whole thing, all he did was he was experimenting with his own ideas and decided, well, what if I just post this online? What happens if I just post this online? What happens if I keep posting it online?
Yeah, keep going.
Right? And if you're constantly experimenting in your business, right, like you're going to fail, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's going to fail. But at the end of the day, you only need one actual success.
That's the amazing thing about it.
To make something go.
It's like, what would it be like?
Well, I mean, I could think of an example. It's like when you're constantly posting videos on Instagram, not every video is going to hit. But realistically, it only takes one video to go viral to make your business go from a part-time side gig to complete full-time job beyond one employee, but beyond yourself.
Yeah, exactly. That's one thing, or even at least a side income of some sort. Anybody could, like a few hundred bucks a month is nice for anyone, especially if it's something you're enjoying doing and it's not overly taxing on your time.
Yep.
But then, like what I was thinking of was like some people might think of trying different things like this as if it's like gambling in a way, but it's way better than that, because instead of gambling where you just lose and the algorithm is set out to haunt you and to make you lose, there's no overlord looking over and trying to like mess with you, like it's like gambling is obviously made to make you lose. That's what it's designed for. That they win every time. The house always wins. But what happens here is that every failure is actually it'd be like you get money every time. So you're paid to gamble, because as you lose, you learn and you grow, and you get to try new things, and that's where the experiment.
And realistically, that's invaluable.
That's invaluable.
You can't even put a number on the value of what every failure has taught you.
Mm-hmm. Character-wise, that's what we're talking about. This episode, character, developing character.
The chances of you coming up with the idea that leads, like, let's say because you've had some things that you've tried that haven't exactly worked out in the way, right? So if we take your this clothing concept that you've had, right, and how it wasn't exactly perfect in the way that it all went, but you learned so much because of time you put into it. You learned about so many different areas that was parts of business that you hadn't really touched before. And now with this seasoning thing, you were able to go at it at a completely different angle. Had you not, you would be going at it at a completely different angle had you not actually done the clothing part.
I'm much more looking forward to it now. I know what I did last time, I didn't do last time, where I stopped, where I want to continue, where I left off from.
And I don't know about you, but there's like all these gurus online that tell you that, well, you should pay me a bunch of money to avoid making these mistakes. And while there are certain mistakes that is valid to pay someone to avoid making,
like taxes, for example, an accountant.
Like there's
a great example.
Exactly. Like there are mistakes that you should avoid making, but there are business mistakes that you should not avoid making, in my opinion. Because had I, for you, for example, if you paid someone $10,000, $15,000 to teach you exactly what not to do, so that you can just have a business and have an Amazon business that works, right? And just in a way that's like, it's straightforward, simple. This is how you do it. This is how it works. And you can avoid these 100 mistakes that you've made, right?
Yeah.
But then you wouldn't have any experience from any of those 100 mistakes that you've ever made. Would you be able to have the success of a business that you have right now?
No, because I wouldn't have developed the character.
That's what I'm thinking.
I wouldn't have become the person that I need to be that. That's one. A second thing, and this connects to the curiosity and willingness to experiment bit. I wouldn't have been as willing to experiment had I known how wrong I was doing everything. And the funny thing is that, like, because like I've been part of a coaching thing, right, for a while where I was coaching, and I'm not saying that what they're doing was wrong. It was just very different than what I was doing. But according to their system, certainly what I was doing should never be working. There's certain data that they would use, and I started to find out that, like, I looked at this like data. It's like, okay, well, let's use, like, let's say I didn't know what sold because I'm selling all this stuff. Let's say I just didn't know that, and I just looked at all these items I'm selling and used their these systems that they used, and to gauge if these are good products, right? And I went on all of them, and most of them I found out and I told people this as I was coaching them, like, if it says it sells very little, that might be wrong. Like, I looked at lots that I would sell, like, 5, 10 a week, and it said it was selling nothing. The system, right? So because data is incomplete, obviously.
Well,
and I learned that was so often the case.
Wouldn't that depend on? Couldn't that system be thinking that 5 to 10 isn't worth doing? 5 to 10 sales a week of a certain product isn't enough.
The system would say it's enough.
Okay.
But and their drops, like, they're like sales rank drops. They're not actually sales. So it's just like whenever the
the rankings. Yep.
But like it definitely was dropping. Anyway, I definitely learned that, like, that's just. I mean, that's helpful in some cases, but like I was telling students to go way, way below the amount of drops than what they were saying, for sure.
I mean, honestly,
because 1 to 2 drops could often mean 20 sales. I was finding, like, it was ridiculously off.
Interesting.
It's still not that the data was useless, because it still did tell you data.
Yeah.
But it was missing so much. And then I just noticed that, and I was like, man, that's interesting. And having a bunch of things that just sell a little bit, that's kind of what my model was. That was not the same model. And then how I went about so many things that I'm doing, which they would consider like sketchy, or just like too, like, whatever, against the grain or too high risk with things. I didn't know that they were that. I was just doing them. And so I wasn't worried about being, and if I was with them, I wondered if I would have ever even done it or just try to do what they're doing. And if I tried to do what they're doing, I would never be where I am now.
Yeah. And that's exactly what, like, if you just follow a system, if you follow someone's exact system, you can get a result. But would you get the result that you would have gotten if you really went in on something the way you wanted to? Yeah. Because, like, let's say that you have this vision for this, like, if I look at my vision for my coaching business, right? I had an idea for my vision of my coaching business, and then I hired a mentor, and my coaching vision became their vision for what a business should look like, right? Or they had this whole thing where if you make $5K a month, you're this, and if you make $10K a month, you're like the shit. Like, because
they made you an exact framework of what it's...
Because the 10K a month was the absolute pinnacle. If you were making 10K a month, you were part of the elite few in that coaching group that was like on a pedestal, and all of these other like friggin' minions were in the bottom trying to gather up and try to find their way up onto this pedestal, right? But then they're looking at these people like, oh my gosh, I want to be like them one day, right? And so, you make decisions that would maybe not be what you would otherwise, because you need to make that, because that's what you need to get.
And so what was funny, because like I jumped, so like I would say the coaching business I did was less like that. It wasn't quite like, they at least tried to not make it feel like that, because like they didn't have like tiers, like that wasn't as obvious, which I think is good that they didn't do that. But it still was there, because just natural for people to look up at and awe at you. So I did my first podcast for this for this group, which is kind of when I got offered to like coach for them. I was selling over $1 million a year at that time, which that would be like a pinnacle for Amazon salesmen to be like, you're selling $1 million in a year. Like that's like unbelievable. And so a lot of people would look up at me, especially like some comments even in the videos just saying like, holy crap, you're just you're the GOAT. You're just this amazing. I think one guy said, I think it might have been Lazy, like you're my idol. I want to be you. Like, just some of this stuff. Not many people. It's not that popular. There's like a couple of people. I'm not talking like thousands. But like, it was definitely like, holy crap. I'm like, okay, that's weird, but I don't feel like that. And it's funny because like, everything that they're doing, I didn't do, and I'm here. And so I kind of tried to like I tried to make that point as I was coaching people. Like I would show them some of their stuff because like there was some whatever interesting stuff to get you started.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I kept wanting to hammer this idea, and I guess I'll hammer it here too on this episode. Is like if you're looking for coaching to tell you exactly what to do, you're just not an entrepreneur. Like go get a job. Like go work for someone. If you want to do something, different or off whatever, then go work for like a small business maybe where you can move around a bit more. But go, because if you don't have an idea, if you don't have something, or you're not willing to experiment, you're not willing to be curious and go and just try things and trial and error, you're probably not an entrepreneur. Now, maybe what they had there was enough for maybe someone to have as like a side gig. Maybe that would be okay. But beyond that, just this cut and dry copy paste formula thing. Like you need to make it your own in some way, or else you're just basically acting like an employee, but for yourself. And then basically your bosses are this coaching group. Like they're like your CEOs are up there.
Yeah,
and you're like following their.
Because you'd have that meeting with them once a week, and all of a sudden, they're telling you like, oh man, like I struggled with this week. I just didn't really show up this week, and then it's friggin' coaches being like, all right, you got to double down. You got to commit to me that you're going to actually do the work this week, right? Because they're just not doing the work. They're just not showing up. They're just not doing it for themselves. They're not doing it for their business. And so now the only job of these coaches in the academy are them just constantly telling you, you have to do the work this week.
Yeah, and I think some of that can be helpful. That goes into the next one, right? It's no, that doesn't. That's later on. I thought there was an accountability one. There's not, but we're going to add it. Being accountable and being able to do that kind of thing. I think that's not necessarily a trait, but that is a thing that can help you with these traits. Let's put it that way.
But kind of the issue, though, with this academy was that there were people who needed that, and if they had a job, they do the work. But because it's their own thing, they're not doing it because they don't do their work. They don't do work for themselves. That doesn't work. That doesn't function. Their brain doesn't function in, I have all this free time, but I need to give it. But I need to give it to this job that I have that I don't understand because it's a business, and it's what I've been indoctrinated to think.
It would depend on why. It would depend on why.
Totally. It
would depend very much on why. Like, why do you need that? Do you need that because you work alone a lot and you just need someone there with you, helping you out with some motivation, which I can certainly relate to a bit. Totally. I could see that. Like to an extent, just a little bit, not enough that I want to like sign up for anything really, but like enough that I want to at least have people to talk to, certainly.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find that in other ways, and to really like have get some people that are doing businessy stuff in similar areas of me, or even not similar areas, but they're just doing business stuff that we can just talk and collaborate and just encourage each other. I definitely like that. But where you need them to like, because this is how it's always taught. It's like every episode when they would plug their coaching, and maybe yours to this too, they always say, do you need someone to like hold your hand and walk you through? Like if you want to do it yourself, just sign up for the what do you call it? The courses. If you want to just do it yourself and you think it's on your own, just sign up for the courses. But if you think you need if you need a little bit of hand holding, someone to like take you through it, then sign up for coaching. I'm like, I don't think that's the right reasoning. Like I don't think that's why you should sign up for coaching. It shouldn't be because you need hand holding. It should be because you just need someone to help you, to coach you into thinking outside the box. Like I think about music coaches, for example, who help inspire these musicians to be creative, to help to push them to get into these creative spaces and they give them advice, but more so not in what to do, but more so in just kind of with direction and just helping you with the bigger picture and really with the bigger picture and with developing the characteristics that you need to be that person. I feel like those are the things that coaching, like if we ever would do coaching or something like that, which we've talked about one day in the future doing, it wouldn't be, I've thought about it a lot on and off, and I really think it wouldn't be like, here, do this. It'd be more like, we're here and we're here with you on your business, but it's your business. Yeah. Like we're not your boss. Like, don't come to us like a guru. Like we're actually like, basically as a coach, we're going to be your coach, but we basically work for you. You're the boss. You need to, and then you come to us, and then we're here to help you with, and then that's where we kind of have to sort of.
That's what I loved about
breaking it down.
That's the one part I did really like about the academy that I was in, was that if I was like, man, I'm talking to this person and they're telling me these things about, signing up for coaching, I actually don't know how to progress this. And I asked them, I'm like, hey, like, this is what I'm dealing with. Like, how could I progress this? Like, what is there like a strategy that you guys would use? Is this like something from
as you're doing
exactly,
something, yeah.
right? It's like, from your experience, I have not experienced this before. From your experience, would you say, because I often like to give my thought, right? I'm like, I am thinking of doing this.
Right.
And I'm like, is this like from your experience, how does this kind of work out? And then they're like, well, you know what? That honestly, I would say something more like this, or I would offer something like this in that type of scenario. You know, maybe, for example, I have my full coaching program and they're like, the budget's just not really there. And I'm like, okay, well, do I want to try to tell them that like a full program is worth spending something a little bit out of budget? Or do I want to offer them something like a smaller tier program? Like, I'm like, what is the best scenario? Like, because I know they really need the full program. Is it worth to kind of tell them like, hey, like, you know, like, I totally understand things are tough. Like, can we make it, is there a way to make this work? You know, like, I know that this is really what you need and you've told me this is really what you need. Or is it like, do I offer them something that I know would be subtracting a portion that I know is so important to their goal to make it fit with them, right? And those are types of things that I was able to ask that I got like very insightful answers on that I thought was super valuable. But there's just so much of it that they're talking about and spewing stuff to me when I don't need it.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like, that reminded me very much of, when I was doing this coaching thing, when people came to me lately, like you kind of went to like, so you're already doing something, like you're in action, you're in the middle of action, like you're going, and then something happens, and then you're not necessarily saying exactly like, hey, what's your 5-step for this? It's more like, or and you're also not saying like, hey, I don't even know where to go, or you're just saying, hey, I'm doing this, I encountered this. What has been your experience with this? Or even an adjacent experience or something that's just, you know, somewhat similar in some way.
Or through your knowledge, how would you go through this?
Or if you had never, just with your experiences that are, what would you do? And I had coaching calls that went like there's a couple of people who were like, they were actually pretty serious. They already like had decent businesses with Amazon. And then these are the kinds of questions that they would ask me. And then I felt like very helpful, and I felt like I was really, and then we connected really well. I had some really good talks with those people, and that went really, really well. And I told them like, yeah, if you, and I started telling other clients that too, but it just doesn't really work unless you really are a person. But like, hey, come, like, I can't just like make this for you. Like they're all under this illusion, it seems, that like I'm like, they're gonna buy coaching and because that's how they sell. It's like, hey, I will bring you from 0 to 10K and blah blah blah. It's like, no, I won't. There is no formula like that. It doesn't exist. And if it does, it won't exist for long because everyone else is going to do it then, I guess. But I don't really think there is anything other than pick something and just keep doing it. Keep experimenting. Be curious and just keep going. Go. And then just see what happens from it, and learn from it. Ask questions. That's where coaching can come in. You have a coach to ask questions from, a coach to help give you some direction, and a coach to literally just to work together with, but not to go to him as if he's this all-knowing person that's going to just make your business for you. Then just, you know, if you want someone to make a business for you, go and work for a business. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Go and work for a business then. But if you want to make the business happen, you need to be able to do this. You have to go out there, try and fail things. And like I was even saying to them, like there should be things when I'm meeting with you as your coach that you don't want to tell me because they're your things that you figured out and they're your unique thing.
Totally.
You know, like I have my couple of my unique things I'm not going to tell you guys about. They're my unique couple of things that there's still a lot of general things we can talk about, like 90-something%, but there's this little bit that's mine. And what is yours? And I would even tell them that. So like, what was your little thing? That little 10% thing, this is your thing that you figured out, you came up with it, you did it, and it's starting to work. Or what's those 10 things you did that didn't work, you learned from them, and now you can take that knowledge as well, and those could also be which then leads you to the thing you end up doing that does work. But regardless, that is more the area where I think we need to be going as an entrepreneur. We need to be trying these things, and then we need to be learning from them, and then keep going, and then develop things that you're so proud of that you're almost wanting to be secretive of some parts of it, because like this is your little unique thing you did. I love that idea that I have a couple of things like my unique thing.
I like that.
I really like that.
Something for even me to reflect on. That's really cool, honestly.
Yeah. What's your unique thing?
And even too, right? Like as a coach and a business, you know, as an entrepreneur, you have to be decisive, and that's again another point in our list. And it's like you have to be decisive. You have to be able to make these decisions in real time and not rely on someone, right? Like, you can't just rely on your coach or your someone to make every decision. Like, that's what I teach independence through my own coaching program. Like, I teach people, I'm like, okay, like part of, I have weekly check-ins, and I do like to tell them what I want them to work on that week. I'm like, okay, well, you're obviously doing this not very well. And I'm like, I want you to work on these things. So I give them like a challenge. I give them like a thing that we're going to change, that we're going to adjust so that they can have something to do. Because I find that a lot of my clients, they really like to have a thing to look towards, right? And so I give that to them. But I also try to throw in pieces of like, they have a certain question and I ask them, okay, what do you think is good enough for you, right? I'm like, they're asking me like, Sam, like maybe for a good example would be when I'm initially talking to a new client, and I'm like, I ask them, how many days do you think you could actually work out in a week, right?
Yeah.
And I ask them, and I allow them to be decisive, right? I allow them to be like, you know what, I think I could actually live with 3 days right now, right? But some people are like, well, I don't know, how many days are good? Some people don't care to know that, right? So then I try to teach that over the course of the program, right? And have them tell me like, hey, Sam, I think I'm ready to do more, right? I allow them to learn how to be decisive and make these decisions so that they can become more independent in their goals and their fitness. And that's what I've had to do with myself, since not being in this coaching program anymore, I have to be decisive on my own decisions.
Yeah, and like I like this point here on that I wrote down was being decisive doesn't always mean being correct. Mm-hmm. I just like that right there. It's just like, okay, so you think that when someone's like, and I can think of some examples. I don't know where I saw this, if it was in a movie or where it was, but like somebody was just like, he was like, man, like you're really like, you know what you're doing. He's like, no, I don't know what I'm doing. But like you're acting all like confident and like, you're so decisive. It's like, oh yeah, I'm decisive and confident, but I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, well that's exactly, well, that's how I am most of the time. Like, I mean, I certainly, I'm decisive often, and I have to be, and I take an action, and I go at it with as much confidence as I can. But I sure don't necessarily always know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
and that's totally fine. And I'm often wrong, and that's also fine as long as I'm coming at it with that mindset. Because you can be decisive, but not arrogant.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which means that because if you're decisive and arrogant, that means that you're going to be pig-headed and that you're right no matter what. You're going to act like you're right, and you're going to, and even if you're wrong, you're going to be right.
Mistakes because
and
of
make
that.
worse mistakes, rather than kind of like holding both things, like one in each hand. You're holding the decisiveness. So like you may almost look. That's why it can be hard to tell. Well, is this person just being decisive and confident, or is he an arrogant, piece of crap? Like how? And the big way to tell is, well, when they fail, because if they keep trying new things, they will fail on something eventually. What do? Do they like? Oh yeah, no surprise there. I make mistakes, that's for sure. Let's just experiment and let's adapt. That was kind of like we kind of glossed through, but it kind of connects to number 3, which is like being adaptable.
Yeah.
Shit happens, just kind of keep going, and that's just kind of what you do. And you just keep acting, keep going, and then as more shit happens, like another thing happened. Cool, let's just keep going, and then you just go through more and more things, and then all of a sudden, you have a successful business.
and you hardly really realized it too, I find.
Yeah, you hardly realized it.
Because I think it took a long time for you to acknowledge that you were actually successful.
Like I still don't even feel that way.
I know. I don't either. Believe it. I don't either. But it's that, for a long time I looked at what you were doing and I was like, wow, he is just the man. He is the guy. And meanwhile, I feel like, whereas you are like, wow, I really don't think I'm there yet. And you might even look at me being like, Sam looks like he's doing pretty good.
Yeah, like I will often think still that like, yeah, because like you'll put in more hours and things than me. Not taking into account the fact that our businesses are just so different in every way that's just impossible to compare, because your business is coupled with the gym, which is like your passion, and you do both simultaneously, and that includes time where you're like recording videos, all those kinds of stuff, which you can get lost in for hours and editing. And I'm starting to do a bit of that now with podcasts, so I understand that, versus just like doing more monotonous work and also like highly creative, analytical, like just figuring out what's the new thing and like starting new things.
Whereas I stick in my lane.
You're just kind of in your thing.
In fitness, I'm like, well, fitness ideas, fitness videos, coaching fitness,
Yeah.
looking at fitness statistics, looking at how to make better fitness results, how to create more results, how to see results, all fitness. Right.
Yeah, right.
And so it's very easy to just live in that.
And it's a lot more, you're actually working with people, it's service.
It's palatable, it's enjoyable.
And you're really with people, and like being with people just takes way more time. Whereas I'm just working with just product, which is just like, it's just product is product. They don't talk to you. And if they do, you should probably go see someone.
You should probably stop working.
Yeah, you definitely need you need the next one. Then you need more self-awareness.
Oh, nice. There we go.
So like we just took a little break here to do some self-awareness literally just now. We're just putting it back in here. And I was just thinking about like, so I'm just going to talk about it right now because we're just in the middle of it.
Do it.
So like we just realized that these notes, we have used these notes before. The episode has felt completely different. But because we had this big break, it's been like since August that we had the other one, and now it's December. We just forgot that this is a topic. And because our minds are so different now about what we're thinking about with these things, it's a completely different episode feel.
It really is.
But then I had a massive deja vu moment on this one. Because I remember that this one, like the quote I had for it, for self-awareness, completely threw me off. And I'm like, I'm getting thrown off. Wait, I know this. This is not good. And I just had labeled it wrong. That's why this happened. And this is such a good show notes.
Realistically, the description for self-awareness makes no sense.
No, it doesn't, and it didn't then either. I tried to make it make sense in the other one, and it was weird. I remember that happening, and now I'm like realizing this is a moment to learn about self-awareness. So literally, it's so funny because we were just so not aware of the fact that
we had literally recorded this episode already.
Yeah, well, we use these show notes. It's definitely been a different episode, I think. Yeah. I mean, we'll review that one and stuff, and we'll see. Maybe you'll listen to this and be like, that never happened, and that might be because we didn't release the episode. Who knows? We'll see, because it hasn't been released as of yet. So we have yet to decide how it goes, but we're going to kind of go off on our own way here. But like, it is interesting how, because I find life goes so fast. So many things are happening. It's so busy. Your mind gets so full. And to me, self-awareness, a big part of what self-awareness is to me, is connected to living in the moment. It's connected to actually being aware of what's going on. And it helps you to have these deja vu moments. Because I was very aware of what I was doing when that happened.
Yeah.
5 months ago, whatever it was, 4 months ago. And now I'm very aware as I'm talking. And I'm like, because in a podcast is what I feel like I'm very aware typically. But so much has happened since I just kind of blurred it. But I feel like a big part of self-awareness, a good way to practice it, a good way to grow and learn from it, is to actually be taking these moments to actually think about like, okay, what am I thinking right now? Where is this coming from? Why am I thinking this? Where am I? What am I doing? Or if you're talking to someone, what are they saying? Really actually listen. Like all these things. And then those all apply to business like crazy, because that's going to make you, if it's customer service, if they think you're actually listening to them, you're actually in the moment, you're actually being properly aware of the situation and of the moment, it'll help you to be way better with engaging with people. That works in business, that works in life, that works everywhere. But it also just helps you to just like actually get the most out of what you're doing at any given time. And I feel like if you're really engaged in part of it, it'll help you to just be aware in these moments. And it helped me to now just be, by being aware, it reminded me of something that happened months ago. And I knew exactly what moment it was. Yeah. And it was a byproduct of self-awareness.
I mean, I could tell you were certain that we'd recorded it before when you were like, wait.
Yeah. I had a complete aha moment.
And the fact that I was like, maybe, I don't know. And you were just like, yep. I was like, okay.
And then we went and looked and we found it. Yeah. And I had mislabeled it there too. And that was what led to this mislabeling. Now I know to label them is important.
Yeah. Yeah. You're more self-aware now, would you say?
Yeah, I am. Absolutely. And that's a big part of it too. Like, and going back to just like the willingness to experiment, like we're experimenting here. You know, like just kind of like to bring it back to full circle here with what we're talking about. Like we're experimenting in this podcast. We're experimenting in these episodes. This is a good example of how much, to what extent we're experimenting. And we're in the beginning. We're in the early stages. I'm sure we'll probably release both these episodes because why not?
Yeah, why wouldn't we?
Our following is going to be quite small still and all that. And we're just starting out and this is all practice anyway. So it's all good. And we definitely talked about many different things than we talked about then. And most people listening a good chance lots of them haven't listened to that episode anyway and will listen to this one. So it's like it's fine, but it is interesting how that can happen. I definitely didn't see that coming.
No, I can tell you when I saw your text this morning saying I found old show notes that we haven't used. I'm really excited
because I do have other old ones I know we definitely haven't used. I have like 6 of them. Like I have a bunch of old ones, so it wasn't a surprise to me, and it was unlabeled, didn't say episode anything on it. So I'm like, oh, cool, it's just there. So I have no idea how that happened, but it did. And, you know, hey, number 7, comfort with failure.
Holy, that hits.
And like it's so funny because like even as we're talking about it, as I'm thinking about it now, like it doesn't like failure just doesn't feel like failure as much when you have this mindset of like this childlike simple mindset of just like experimentation and curiosity. Nothing then really feels like failure anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I know that I used to not do things for the sake of not knowing if they would work out, right? Like as anyone does, you know, right. It's not exactly a unique feeling, and it's just the idea that you know how I mentioned like I ask a bunch of questions, like I'm always asking questions, right? Yeah. You know, part of it is a fear of failure, right? But part of it is that I used to be so scared of asking questions that I wouldn't, and then I would be embarrassed when I did fail. And then I would hate the whole process. So what I've done is I've changed my narrative, and I now ask questions because I used to be afraid of asking questions, and now I also don't make that failed mistake anymore. And if I do, I'm more open to learning about it, right? And maybe that's an interesting progression. But like my comfort with failure is very different than it was before I started a business because of just the sheer number of times even that you do have to fail, whether they're small failures, big failures. You know, I've had so many times where I've made a post and I'm like, man, this is gonna do well.
And
no one cares. No one cares at all. And I've had so many times where I make a post where I do the whole thing on my story where I'm like, hey guys, like I'm looking for a couple of people who are looking to make a change. You know, if that's you, like I'm accepting some clients right now, right? And I get 0 people. And I'm like, in the beginning, when that happened, it made me feel like a failure. But now I do that because that's what I do. I do that every so often. You know, when a lot of new people come to my page, I make stories like that, and I allow people to show their interest. And if no one shows their interest, I don't get offended. I don't get like depressed. I just go on with my day, cool, and I keep doing exactly what I've been doing because I just need to stay in the game longer. I just need to keep showing up, and I need to keep providing value, and I need to make sure that I can get my page to as many people as possible so that more people can see that, you know, their goal is possible and more people will reach out. I don't see this as I used to be so blind in that a failure right now, you know, me putting something out and getting no response back meant it did not work. And not just that post, everything, right? Like the whole business didn't work. But now I look at it as I need more skin in the game. I just need to keep, you know, giving value to people. I need to keep showing that this is possible and that people can actually see a result. And I need to prove that to them. I just haven't proved it to them yet.
Yeah, I think that's kind of because like you know, we hear a lot, and not saying this is totally bad. This is also good in some ways, but like, we hear a lot about always talking results based. You know, that's good. You know, people are, we're all results based, and I'm like, okay, fair, but what kind of results are we talking about? We're talking about like only the physically visible ones. For example, views, people responding, money, whatever whatever the results may be, sales, whatever it is, just like calls booked or whatever it is, whatever metric, physical data metric. Are we talking about only those results, or are we talking about the internal results as well? Which is kind of what this episode's all about, is talking about the internal results, the results inside of ourselves that actually are making a difference, and we're actually growing in some way, and we're actually developing our character, we're actually becoming the kind of person that can actually do whatever it is that we're trying to do. And are we including that in?
And it takes stepping out and failing to be able to be comfortable doing things that are awkward and that are, I mean, take a look at me filming at the gym, right? You know, there's been multiple times I've filmed at the gym now when there was 3, 4, 5 people at the gym. It's sometimes, one time in particular, there was a lot more people at the gym, And it was terrifying. And in the beginning, I didn't want anyone to be at the gym. I didn't want there to be anyone. I didn't want anyone to see me. I was just like, if there was some people at the gym, I'd get this like awful feeling. And while I still get nervous, I still get this and that, right? I don't have the same level of nerves, and I'm more open to it. You know, it took me a year and a half of having my business to go record videos at the gym regularly and have that be my primary content. Everything else I used to record was I recorded videos for fitness clients at my desk.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you don't have to scroll down very far on my Instagram account to find that all the videos that I made that were ideally trying to provide value to people were me at my desk. It was me being comfortable while I was expecting other people to think that their result that was not comfortable would be possible. You know, how could they see that from what I'm doing? Because I'm just trying to shelter myself. I was trying to shelter myself in my content because I didn't want to go to the gym and record something. That was too scary.
Oh, so that was the main reason for that.
Right? Yeah, it was way too scary.
Okay.
Right? But eventually I'm like, I just need to actually go to the gym and try something. And so eventually I did. And now you could scroll down, the last 3 months of my content have been gym based. And it's boomed my success because people actually see me as someone who can help them.
Because you're like where you're supposed to be.
Because I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not this dude sitting at his desk. Because the question is like, why is this guy talking about fitness? Why is this guy talking about losing weight? He's sitting at a desk.
Yeah.
What is that? Why I don't get it?
I see the disconnect.
Right?
Yeah.
And now I'm like in the gym showing you and telling you exactly how you can actually do this in the gym or at home. Wow, it actually makes sense. Wow, this person's actually kind of like captivated by my concept because I'm in the space, right? And that was very scary for me, right? And I was very comfortable just recording videos at home for a long time. But now I look at those videos. They're so bad.
And I'm sure we'll look back at a lot of these videos and we'll think that at least parts. I mean, I like to think that at least some of it's still good, you know. And I'm sure some of those things are good too.
The concepts were there.
But like at the same time, it's like, you know, you just see all the things. But like, yeah, like we want the top of the ladder without climbing it or something like that.
That's exactly what I wanted. Yeah.
And it's like, well, then what are you going to do? Like, if you just imagine you actually were just, you know, that spoiled brat kid that got everything he ever wanted. Like, he's just a great example of that. The person who, you know, like unearned achievement, unearned rewards. Unearned rewards are actually the worst thing you can give your child because they are taught that they don't have to do anything. You just get this. You're entitled. It makes people, and typically it makes them actually more resentful and hate their parents more, which is the funny thing about it, which makes no sense.
Yeah.
But psychologically there is a reasoning for it, and it has something to do with the fact that like they feel indebted even though they know they're not, but because you just know you're given more than you've earned, you feel like you owe something, like you don't deserve this. And there's a difference between like, you know, you have earned it and you have to like realize you've earned it, and that's like the whole, you know, imposter syndrome thing. But there's also those who just, you know, you actually haven't earned it, and it's like you just got it given to you, and that's like the lottery. That's like and that's why people that win the lottery, they always end up losing all the money because they haven't become the person that can actually handle the money and all that kind of stuff. And so all those things come into play, and it's like, well, what if the whole purpose of getting to the top is about climbing? Like, what if the climb is the actual purpose? Yeah. So then the result is just like a cherry on top. It's just like it's like an added bonus, you know? And to me, that's like what this is about. And I do have a belief that like, if we keep doing this, A, we will get better because I believe in the growth mindset.
Yeah.
B, we will grow as people from this personally, and it'll affect our other businesses. And then C, I also believe that actually this will one day get more, you know, noticed, and it will become more of a thing because we're going to be better. We're going to be better at it. We're going to be better at just ourselves are going to become better. So that's two improvements that are going to help this. And then a third thing is then, well, from all of that and all the repetition and how things grow over time, the snowballing effects of things, we actually might develop a bit of a following if we're consistent with that.
Exactly.
And so I believe in all three of those things. But honestly, if I only get 2 of 3, you know, that's still pretty good. And I want those 2 to be those first 2, the personal growth and then the getting better at what we're doing here. Those are the 2 things I want to have growing the most. Those are the most important. That's more important than the actual results based, like the seeing the result.
Yeah, totally.
And because then you win no matter what. You win no matter what.
It's a difficult mindset to have, that mindset, to actually be satisfied with that.
Yeah.
Because what might happen is you look at what you're doing and you're like, wow, like my business is growing and I'm getting really good at doing this podcast, but I'm not seeing any result.
Yeah,
That's
it gets hard. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I imagine a year from now doing this and having gotten a lot better and all these things happening and still being nowhere further at all.
Yeah.
That would be a little bit hard. And that's like my minimum goal is a year. That's what we've talked about. Minimum goal is a year. And I'm like, that I know we'll do it. But it's like after that, if nothing at all has happened, not even money, but just like any kind of growth at all, really, which seems so unlikely. But if for some reason there's no growth at all, well, maybe it would be time to reflect and be like, well, what could we do differently? Maybe we need a complete change. Maybe we need to change up our entire topic and our entire main emphasis on stuff.
Target, market.
Who knows? So I'd rather go to that point. And maybe even that might be a thing we do like 6 or 8 months and even like, because we're not quitting, but
So
like,
we can acknowledge it sooner, potentially.
like, hey, it's been 6-8 months and this is just not going like we wanted to, but how about we just shift to this and see what happens? That's the experimenting part. You don't have to wait a whole year, but typically I do think a year of one thing would be a really good, proper experiment.
Yep.
And then we could do another year of something different, but a podcast built into it and just kind of shifting the focus a bit. Who knows? And I mean, as we go through the year, I'm sure we'll naturally just shift focus on things
Yeah,
between.
of course. And we'll
And we can watch those videos, see how they do.
We'll talk more about what's relevant, right? And if you're succeeding and I'm succeeding in my individual businesses, our conversation will switch.
Yeah.
Right? Like our natural perspective will change. And if you're going through a rough time and I'm going through a rough time, our perspective is going to shift, right? We might decide to talk about different types of things, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be very relative to what's going on. If you get really, really busy through life things, our topics might be more internal, right? Different things. And I think that there's always a bit of reflection and consideration that what we're talking about has some sort of impact into what the episode is. And whether or not the title or the show notes are maybe what's going on in our life, it's that how we perceive our views of those things through the episode will sometimes be relevant.
They're just kind of a guide. They're kind of like just a little bit of a lead, or like a thing just to kind of follow along with, which is why, like, I mean, this will be a great experiment because we'll get to go actually and listen to the old one and see how different things are. We can see it in real time. So honestly, I mean, we'll probably just change the names so that there are these different names to like a name that emphasizes, like the first one might just be the actual exact name. This one maybe we'll slightly, alter the name to more fit, because we kind of have talked a lot more about risk tolerance, curiosity, this develop, the willingness to experiment with things.
Yeah,
we've kind of kept more along these angles anyway. Yeah, this has been more of where we've been. So like, it's like that's what really intrigued us this time. Maybe last time it was something else. I'm not sure what was the main thing last time, but we'll find out. So it's definitely interesting. But yeah, no, I'm enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to continue to grow and to develop these characteristics with the podcast, and just to see how, as I grow, like I had something happen with our last episode where I was really excited about it. Yeah. And I'm like, that's cool. How can I do that again? And so that's where we'll talk more about it. But like, those are some of the things I want to talk about. Like, hey, something went right there. And that's what you can ask yourself in your life. Like just maybe to kind of close this episode here, like ask yourself when you're doing things and you're experimenting, you're being curious, you're doing stuff, all of a sudden you'll have a time, whether it's in your job or your business or your relationship, whatever it is, like an aha moment, but not in like a deja vu, but in like a something went right there kind of an aha moment, like, oh wow, that was fantastic. Yeah. What was it? Acknowledge what it was. That's the self-awareness bit. Yeah. Living in the moment, like being able to actually see when that happens, and then be like, hey, well, how can I do more of that, and then go and do more of that.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's an interesting question to ask yourself, right? So that you can figure it out. So ask yourself what went right. Like, what did you do that was right there, and not necessarily when you like see the big, the big external thing, like, oh, we got 100,000 views, or oh, I got some money. Rather, like, no, I just felt really great. Today just was a great day. I was doing things well. I was on it. I could feel it. And a lot of that is feeling based. A lot of it is. And then you can also just tell, like, you could talk to the person, like, you're like, yeah, like, you were just really on point today and really doing cool. Well, why? And what was happening that was leading to that? And then find out when you get in that zone and what brings you into that zone. And you can learn so much, and that can change your life in a crazy way. So, because it could determine the direction that you change, right? The direction you go into, right? Maybe there's certain parts of your job and at your workplace that you actually get passionate about, but your primary job isn't really within that zone, right? Maybe that's a telltale that you should be moving and trying to move into that different area that you get put into sometimes, right? Maybe you do a physical job, but sometimes when you go into the analytical side, that's the part you actually get really interested in about. And all of a sudden you realize, you can recognize that, wow, I actually go home having had a good day every day. And you kind of put the dots together and you realize that that's why. It's because you did that different type of work that day, right? That's like a relevant example, right? There's days where I have, the certain set of things that I need to get done. And if I get them done in a certain way, typically by a certain time, I end up feeling really, really good. And, it leads me to other success. And I'm like, wow, I should try to replicate that because I don't do it like that every day. But I don't, maybe I don't put two and two together that the reason I have a better day is because I have finished those things by a certain time, right? And then that can lead me into having a better day. But if you don't reflect and think about it, you don't acknowledge why certain things are leading you to having a better day or to having more success in your business, right? So to just self-reflect and be like, yeah, why is today better than a different day? What did I do? Mm-hmm. Right? And
what went right? Yeah.
Maybe I woke up and maybe it's super simple. Maybe you woke up and drank water and didn't go on your phone in the morning. Maybe that happens randomly. And then all of a sudden you go to bed that evening and you feel good. And it's because you lived a different day because of it.
Yeah.
But unless you reflect, you won't acknowledge that that's why.
Yeah, and that's the self-awareness piece. So, yeah, there's so many characteristics and there's so many examples to list about how they impact your life, but they do, and you may not realize they do because you're not paying attention to them. But today just pay attention.
Pay attention.
And then do that consistently, and you will just find countless ways to grow and become better in life and in business.